Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel, and I failed NaNoWriMo this year. If you don't know and you just randomly clicked on this video, NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, and it's where people set to write a novel in 1 month. And basically, the setup for that is to write 50,000 words in a month. I set out to do NaNoWriMo this year and I have failed already. Yay! So I just kind of wanted to talk about that because I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about their NaNoWriMo fails. As a writer, I feel like that experience is just as valid and you get just as much information learning out of it. And even if you fail, most of the time you still have something written or at least an idea in your head, and you can still take that and write it as a novel. Just because you didn't finish NaNoWriMo doesn't mean that your work can't be finished, can't be published, all of that. So I just wanted to talk about that. So my goal for NaNoWriMo was to work on a just fun, silly novel, just something to get me writing again. I wanted just to get back into writing and start something new and fun that was separate from everything else that I had been thinking about or working on, to get back into my groove. I had finished grad school this year in May and had written an entire creative writing thesis, and I needed to separate myself from that, but also just separate myself from any of the other works that I'd been thinking about or working on. I wanted to write something that was a really silly, fun book that I could see published as an indie title exclusively. Something that would be like an ebook romance kind of thing, which is a very different kind of story than my normal track of writing. And my other kind of goal with this project, besides getting back into writing, was I was going to film it and just archive my experience, vlog my experience, so that other people could, see me having a good time during NaNoWriMo, all that kind of writing vlog stuff. But it is day 15, 16, and I have failed. And let me tell you how I got to that point. So day 1 of NaNoWriMo, I had my idea. I had been curating it and writing a little outline for it 2 weeks in advance. So it was a very, very new project idea. And I approached it as a silly, fun kind of romance novel with kind of some goofy plot points and fun characters. But as I slowly developed the world and the characters, the themes started coming in. And through NaNoWriMo, I realized this is going to cover a lot darker topics than I originally thought it was. I wanted to give these characters nuance, I wanted to give these characters a lot of depth, and I wanted them to really internally struggle, especially our main female character. And with that, kind of the tone of the novel is slowly changing. Just the writing process is a lot more difficult because I don't feel like I can really rush through the project. And I was finding it really difficult to put down the 2,000 words every day because it wasn't getting at to what I wanted it to get at. I also decided to write this novel in first person, and now I'm realizing that this novel really does need to be in third person. I want a little bit of distance from the character to kind of play with the tone and make a little bit more whimsy. And so just as I was writing, things weren't working, but I was trying to power through anyway. And that's where I kind of ended up struggling, because this novel was really new, and as I learned it and figured stuff out, and as it grew as I was writing it, it was changing into something that was different than what I initially thought, and it was really difficult to keep going when I knew so many things needed to change. I think the approach of writing a draft and just powering through and just getting it done, even though you know changes need to happen, is a great way to go about writing a novel. It's how I wrote the first draft of my first ever novel. It's how I wrote the second draft of that novel as well. It's just really great for getting the story on the page, getting the words on the page, and it does work. But I think it's important to know that that technique doesn't always work. It doesn't work for every person, and it doesn't work for every novel. And that's what I kind of want to discuss, is because I feel like a lot of times we have a lot of shame and guilt about not completing writing projects, about failing NaNoWriMo especially. And I don't think there needs to be shame around it, because you do, again, get something out of writing it. I've learned a lot about my novel, and I have 10,000 words on the page that I can play and work with, and I know where things need to change, and I'm still excited about the project, and I'm getting more and more excited about these characters, about making them feel more fleshed out, more real. It was really hard to decide to put the novel down for a second. I didn't write more due to circumstances, but once I had kind of left the novel for 5 days and hadn't been able to write, I realized that premonition to wanting to start over is okay, and that's like what I'm going to do. So basically, day one, I was very gung-ho about this project, and as the process went on, I realized things needed to change, and I wanted to start over. As soon as I realized that I wanted this novel to be in third person, I'm like, I need to start over. I need to make the beginning chapters longer. I need to have more of this build up to the main plot line. I need to develop these characters, these friendships, so that when you get to the main core of the novel, it doesn't feel like we're just stepping into these characters' lives without any real backstory. And when I was having this realization, I had a night where because of circumstances, because I was busy, I couldn't finish writing my word count. I was 1,000 words behind, but I was like, you know what, this is no problem. The next day, it was a weekend, and me and my roommate were busy, and before I knew it, I had not written that day, or the next day, or the next day, to where I'm sitting here now, where I've missed 5 days of Nanowrimo. Even if I get back on track, there is no way that I can catch up, most likely. 5 days in Nanowrimo is a little bit under 10,000 words, I believe. So like, is it possible? Yes, but I don't want to rush this story anymore. That's the big thing that I'm taking away from Nanowrimo, is that this story in particular doesn't need to be rushed through and written that way. I think the first 10 days of Nanowrimo really got me back into a groove of writing and wanting to write, of writing this project specifically, and it taught me a lot about this project, and it taught me that I don't want to rush it. And I think that is a valuable lesson. Nanowrimo is such a valuable resource for writers. It's a useful and great thing, and I think it teaches a lot of really useful skills for writers, but I don't think that we need to have guilt or shame about stepping away, about failing, about not completing that project. So, are there any tips for when you fail Nanowrimo? I think the most important tip is to not think of it as a failure. You didn't fail, you just decided that this wasn't working. And step number 2, I think you need to evaluate your project and think about why you had to step away from it, why you stopped writing it. And once you kind of can evaluate if that was because of your mental health situation, if it was because of your scheduling situation, if it was because of the project itself and what you're doing, I think you can evaluate what you need to do to keep that project going. And step number 3, I think the most important step to failing Nanowrimo is that once you evaluate your project and why you couldn't write 2,000 words a day, or why you couldn't stay on track, or whatever it is, you need to figure out a solution and keep writing. For a lot of people, filling up the pages, doing the writing is the most difficult part. For me, it can be, especially if I get out of a groove of writing like I have been. But I think what is even more difficult than the writing itself is the process that comes after. For me personally, like the editing to the point where it's actually a viewable thing that I want other people to see. And I think that comes from like perfectionism. But for me, what I've evaluated in this project is that I want to take it a little bit slower, and I want to start over with the changes that I already want to implement. So it's going to be really easy going forward in the next couple days to restart this project and get it up and running again, especially since I have over 10,000 words that I can use and just re-edit as I go through the project. And again, going back to step number 3, the next step is to write. I think that this is the most important step, again, is that once you fail Nanowrimo, just get back into writing again. Just continue on that project if that project isn't working. If you decided to ditch Nanowrimo, especially because that project is just not a good idea, then start something else. I think the most valuable thing about Nanowrimo is getting people to write, getting people on a writing schedule, getting people to think about writing daily. Writing daily doesn't work for everybody, but I do see results, obviously. And I think as someone that wants to be a writer, just to write a little bit every day, even if it's not working, even if you're not going to use it, even if you end up scrapping it, does end up being really helpful. Of course, you need mental health days, you need days where you don't have to write, but you should try to write anyway. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work for that day, and that's okay. Yes, I hope that this video was a little bit validating. I know I'm not the only one that has failed so far, I can't be. But just because you failed doesn't mean that you are a failure. It doesn't mean that this project can't work. It just means that you have to reevaluate what you want to do and start over, and that's really It's okay to do that, and we need to be nice to ourselves sometimes. But again, I hope this video was helpful. I'm thinking about doing some regular writing vlogs that are separate from NaNoWriMo, so maybe look forward to some of those. The most important thing about NaNoWriMo is supposed to be fun, so if it's not fun and your project's not working out, it's okay to reevaluate and to redo stuff. And I just decided that I wanted to change so many things, so I think it's okay that I stopped. And I'm going to continue writing this month, and that's what I'm excited for. I think that's all I'm going to do for rambling today. I hope this video was helpful in some way. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading and happy writing.